All right, Illinois baseball is on a tear, so we got to talk about him. And I figured the best guy to reach out to and talk about Illinois baseball is the guy who basically sees every game outside of like a little March stint where I think you were at covering Illinois basketball as we all were. Scott Beatty is the play-by-play man for the Illini Radio Network, Learfield Sports. You know him from DWS Sports Talk. Scott, thanks for joining us because we got a lot to talk about with this Illini baseball team.
Hey, yeah, this is pretty cool. I make it onto the Jeremy Warner podcast. Now I feel like I get a little check mark in my resume or something with this.
Well, I've been on with you guys, so now it's time to return the favor. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, home.
Yeah. Well, Illinois baseball, for those that don't know, Scott, is leading the Big Ten with 6 conference games remaining, 2 more series left. But let's start with this. Let's go backwards first, because what were your expectations for this team coming into this year? Because I don't think it was, with 2 series remaining, Illinois is leading the Big Ten.
No, it wasn't, if I'm being honest. Although I figured the lineup would be pretty good based on who was returning and the pieces that were being added. So I figured there'd be a chance there. But like everybody and every team at every level, you go, well, what's the pitching going to do? And there were some big question marks. Well, it turns out the pitching has held its own. You can look at the numbers. It's not tops in the Big Ten, but the numbers in the Big Ten have skewed for the offense anyway. And so the pitching has held its own here in the latter 2/3 of the season. And the offense has turned out to be really good. And in fact, better than it was last year when it was hitting a bunch of home runs. And here we are. But I thought maybe the team was getting slightly undersold at the beginning of the year when the predictions had, I can't remember where they were, but maybe 6th or 7th or something like that in the preseason predictions. But you're always going to get something out of a Dan Hartlib team with solid defense and grind it out at bats. And more often than not, Illinois is competitive in the Big Ten because that's how Dan Hartlib has established this program over the years. But yes, count me as a little bit surprised, and that's all right because it's been a fun ride.
Well, and it did start off that well, 5-10 to start the season. I know the non-conference can be difficult for cold weather schools and all that, but what did you see and think through those first 15 games?
Well, I thought it would be – I was discouraged. I knew the non-conference was as hard as ever. You had a couple of teams on the non-conference schedule that made it to Omaha last year for the World Series. You had a few more that were super regional teams. And I thought, well, this is going to be a slog, but yet it just didn't seem like the team was performing that well. And it kind of just takes the wind out of your sails when you lose big games. I mean, I know how good Tennessee is, but I was there for the 24-1 beatdown. That was a weird game, though, with rain delays and a sloppy mound, and things just kind of unraveled. But there was 2 other games there at Tennessee where they actually competed despite what the score would tell you. So there's like glimmers of hope where you just go, this team could play better. But at 5-10, I'm starting to think, well, hopefully they can just be competitive in the Big Ten and kind of make something of this season. They've really turned it around.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I tell you what, the big turnaround was the opening series of the Big Ten at Indiana. When they took 2 of 3 there against a team that, for my money, I thought would win the Big Ten, and they still could because they're only a game out. When they took 2 out of 3 on the road to start the year in a place where usually you don't win because Indiana's really good at home, I thought that just changed the tone of the whole year. I think it woke the team up and went, hey, we can play. We can be good. And here we are.
Yeah, Illinois, since that 5-10 start, 23-6, Scott. They're 18-2 at home this year, which is an unbelievable mark. Why have they been so dominant during these last 29 games?
I call it the spine of the team. When you look up the middle, almost every sport, you need to be best as you can up the middle. And so let's start with catching. And you have 2 more than capable catchers in Cam Janik and Jacob Schroeder, and they're 2 tremendous hitters. Janik can spray it all over the place. Schroeder, we know, has tremendous power. And then you have your middle infielders who are seniors who are they're having their best years at the plate in Brody Harding and Cal Haza, and they're just playing like we're leaving it all out there because this is the end of the line for them, at least for college baseball. Then for the first part of the year, you had a really good freshman in Canadian Cameron Chialoy. He's on a 15-game hitting streak. He gets hit by a pitch. He's been out since, and his return is, I guess, questionable. And then you may have heard the story of Connor Milton at this point, replaces him in the lineup in a permanent way. He had been kind of fighting for a spot there, and all of a sudden turns it on. And he's, what is he hitting here? I got it in front of me. Connor Milton, he's not going to qualify for the league lead or anything because he hasn't played enough games, but he's hitting 342 with 7 bombs. And everybody in the DIA is cheering for him because his father, Howard, is part of the athletic administration, and he's a Champaign kid. So everybody in town who's involved with baseball knows him. And so there you have it. Up the middle has just been phenomenal on the field and at the plate. And then you get what you get out of your corners and you're in the outfield and in the infield. And they've been all playing pretty well, if not phenomenal as well. But to me, I mean, the difference to me is really, especially Cal Hayes and Brody Hardy. They've always been good fielders, but they're having their best years at the plate.
You feel that, guys? Warmer, sunnier days are calling. And fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart and Keto, or my favorite, Protein Plus. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine with Factor. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore, so you can crush your wellness goals this May with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. So treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. And the best part, you keep kitchen time to a minimum. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. So enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. So head to factormeals.com/Illini50 and use code Illini50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% of your next month. That's code Illini50 at factormeals.com/Illini50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. This team has 88 home runs through 44 games, so they're averaging 2 per game. 24 more home runs than the next highest team, which is Indiana, which obviously has been a Big Ten power here. Take us down this lineup and what makes it so dangerous, Scott?
If you look at the numbers last year, they were hitting home runs too. They were on a similar pace. I would bet you some of the money in my pocket right now that more of them were solo home runs. It was kind of a live or die with a home run last year. The home runs here have been, believe it or not, it feels like a piece of the offense because there's not as many bad strikeouts. There's not as many just do or die with the home run. It's been sustained rallies. It's been 2-out hitting. It's been, even if you do strike out, you're going to do it in 5 or 6 pitches instead of 3. And I think up and down the lineup, especially with power hitters, there's some swing and miss, and I'd still like to see it cut down. But I don't see right now a spot in the lineup where you go, oh, easy out. Oh, there's a guy who's obviously in for his defense first and his bat second. 1 through 9 every day is I don't think pitchers want to face them particularly much. There's some that will put fear in you, like Jacob Schroeder and Drake Westcott and Ryan Moorman. And then you look at a kid like Cam Janik. I mean, Janik's hitting 379, but Jeremy, he has 9 strikeouts. He has struck out 9 times in 177 at bats. That's a phenomenal rate. And I would bet very few of them are caught looking. I mean, he's just incredible hand-eye contact coordination. So there's just really not a hole in the lineup. And that's a pretty nice luxury that Dan has acquired. And frankly, Adam Grist is probably unsung as the hitting coach and recruiting coordinator. And maybe he likes it that way, but he deserves his flowers for how he coaches those guys.
Yeah, Illinois has 3 of the top 6 guys in home runs in the Big Ten. Ryan Mormon, 15. Drake Westcott and Jacob Schroeder, 13 each. But you look up and down this lineup, there's 9 guys who I think at least 5+ home runs on this team. The next highest in the Big Ten, I think, is 6 with 5+ home runs. So it's just got to be a bear for pitchers to get through this lineup.
Yeah, and they added a strength and conditioning coach this year after having kind of piecemealing it, I think, over the last year plus. He's a guy with experience in big league organizations, and Henry Alec, that probably has something to do with it. And they're old, so theoretically they're at their strongest in the peak of what their body could do. And Dan Hartledge's talked about not chasing the home run. They have this new facility with all the Rapsodo and TrackMan and everything else that you can do to figure out what you're doing with your swing and how the ball's leaving your bat. But if you go chase your numbers, Dan was concerned about that at the end of last year. It felt like guys were just chasing launch angle or what have you, instead of flat swings that produce line drives that, as he says, you can run into home runs. To me, the analogy is like you go to the doctor and you just say, I have a goal every day just to have the best blood pressure and the best cholesterol, instead of saying I want to have a healthy lifestyle. And if you do the right things health-wise, then you're probably going to be good in your health numbers as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I think this is a team that just has a little bit of a different approach at a plate and still has similar results in terms of the power numbers. But I did not see Brody Harding hitting where we at now, 7-8 home runs. Yeah, I did not predict that at all in my mind, and it's been kind of cool to see.
Yeah, it's not like one player like Brent Spillane kind of carrying the lineup, which is makes him, I think, really, really dangerous. You mentioned the pitching. We had questions about that. I mean, that's kind of been the question the last couple of years with Illinois, and that often wins in the postseason, at least most levels of the sport. How would you kind of characterize the Illini staff, and how would you kind of evaluate how their starters and main bullpen pieces have done?
I would say it's been okay. I wouldn't say it's been phenomenal, but yet I feel like the floor of pitching has come up this year, and that there's more pieces that they can go to. And I got to tip my cap to Jack Crowder, who started the year as the Friday guy and has had some wobbles. And he's really put together some quality. 3 of his last 4 starts have been true quality starts. And by the way, I think at Illinois Field, anything 4 runs and under should be a quality start. But yeah, he's really started to hold his own as a Friday guy. Again, another senior who can see the end of the line. And Jack Crowder has real aspirations to be playing professionally. But that he has started to meet the moment as a senior. The addition of Cooper Omens, when he's on, he's a crafty lefty. The Sunday spot has been, as for many teams, it's been a little bit of by committee. But the pitching has just kind of kept you. I feel like it's an analog to basketball this year, where it was, hey, the defense just has to do something because the offense is going to outscore everybody.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of Brad Underwood's offense scoring 90 points. And so what if you gave up 75? I think this pitching staff has taken up some of the pressure off the offense. I haven't seen this team win a lot of 5-3 ball games, but they're winning 10-5 and 12-5 or 12-6. Frankly, in college baseball, that's okay. So it's not the same as the big leagues, and enjoy it. I think the bottom line is just win. And this team has started to go, let's just go win, because winning's fun.
Sure is. And next 2 weekends, they need to win to get a Big Ten championship. It'd be their 3rd since 2011, but they have just a 1-game lead over 3 other teams. This is a really tight race. And Illinois hosts Iowa this weekend. They're 13-8 in the league. And then they're at Purdue, which is 12-6, just a game behind the Illini. Then you have Nebraska, a game back. They have Indiana, Michigan State left. Indiana has Nebraska and Michigan left. Purdue, Michigan, and Illinois left. What do you make of the end of this year? It seems like a bunch of toss-ups. So I don't know if there's a favorable schedule among the bunch.
I don't know that there is. It's going to be Illinois may have the toughest draw You get Iowa at home, but this will be Iowa's final series in the Big Ten because there's always somebody playing a non-conference weekend due to the odd number of teams. Fun trivia fact, Illinois played the final baseball game in Wisconsin's history back in the 90s when they left baseball. Anyway, so Wisconsin's in here, and if you pay attention to all Big Ten baseball, you know they have three tremendous frontline starters, and Brody Brecht is the headliner, and he throws 100 miles an hour. He was a football player for Iowa also, and said, hey, if I throw 100 miles an hour, maybe I ought to try the baseball thing solely. But they've had question marks with their bullpen. But they're going to be playing like their hair's on fire because this is their last opportunity. And then they have to sit and watch the final weekend. So, yeah, that's a toss-up. And then you go to Purdue, potentially playing for a championship. I kept waiting for Purdue to flame out this year. They haven't. They've added some good pieces. They have a redshirt freshman who might be player of the year, and Luke Gaffney. There's a couple others in the league that I think would have something to say about that. I think I would hope Illinois can just run the table, right? But realistically, if you can win both series, you'll have a shot. And just because of math, the next weekend at Purdue, if you don't get swept and nothing else crazy happens, you'll be in the mix. You'll be playing in the final three games with a chance, and everybody will be doing that. Okay, if this team wins and this one loses, or with these two losses coupled with that, it'll be fun. Illinois kind of met the moment so far, and I think this team is playing greater as a whole than it is as the sum of its parts. So I can kind of say buckle up.
The crazy part about all this is in the Big Ten, even if you're a top 3 or 4 team, you're not guaranteed to make the NCAA tournament, right? So what are the chances of Illinois making the NCAA tournament? What do they need to do to get back to the big dance?
I would really like the RPI to be higher for a discussion of the at-large. There is a feeling that Nebraska's in because of their resume. I think their RPI is in the 20s right now. And there's a real scenario that some people are suggesting where if you win the league in the regular season, like in Illinois, and don't have a great RPI, that it may not be enough to grab an at-large bid. Something seems wrong there on the scales of justice to me. But the Big Ten had a 40-win team 2 years ago in Rutgers, and Rutgers didn't get in. Rutgers didn't win the league that year, but I don't care who you play. At some point, 40 wins is 40 wins. So as much as you'd like to hang a banner or whatever, a pennant for winning the Big Ten Conference in the regular season, the pathway for several of these teams, including Illinois, might be just win the Big Ten tournament and take an automatic qualifier. Now, if Illinois wins the Big Ten, let's say, and gets at least a couple of wins in the Big Ten tournament, maybe that's enough. There's a feeling that the Big Ten is a 2-bid league this year. I'd love to see it be 3 or 4. All the stuff I'm reading doesn't say that, but I hope it's just that. It's prognostication. The other thing is there was a couple of tweaks to the RPI formula this year, and maybe a couple other things that they'll start looking at. And you never know who's in that room, who's advocating, and plus there's the old eye test. So I would like to think it's maybe more than a 30% chance, but there's a real scenario here that some people feel like winning the league is not enough. And that'd be a shame, honestly. That'd really be a shame. I think the Big Ten should be if you're the best in the league, that's good enough to get in. I really think that's where it should be. Who knows? There's this perception that the league's down.
Yeah, Nebraska currently 21 in the RPI, Maryland 35, Illinois at 60. Then you have Indiana 62, Ohio State 63, Rutgers 66, Purdue 69. So a lot of teams bunched up there.
And Maryland's a really interesting case because they're below 500 in the league right now, but they may have the second best at-large resume. I don't know. That would be weird if you win your league and you can't get in, but somebody way down in the standings does.
As you said, Scott, Dan Hartle's program has continued to be competitive in the Big Ten, but it's kind of fluctuated. It's like, 2019 they make the tournament. They finished second a couple years ago, but they've kind of had 7th place finishes in between that. So what's this mean for the program to be competing for a Big Ten title at the end of the season?
Oh, I think it's huge because Dan Hartleb was named by D1Baseball.com as the coach of the decade in the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. And everyone knows the crown jewel there was the run to the Super Regionals in 2015. But you also had a really successful Indiana program in that decade that went to the World Series and produced Kyle Schwarber and all that stuff. So that was no small feat. But 2015 is 9 years ago now. It's starting to get way distant in the rearview mirror. And so is the 2010s as a decade. So I think this kind of reestablishes that, hey, Illinois has not fallen off and is way behind the Marylands and the Indianas and the Nebraskas in the Big Ten. You still have a huge recruiting base in the state of Illinois. For the moment, you still have limits on scholarships. That means players are still paying their way to be here at the University of Illinois, which that's a selling point. The university is a selling point everywhere you go because you're also working on a degree here because you're not necessarily getting a full ride. So all those things matter here to say, yeah, Illinois is still very relevant. Recruiting tends to be, I think, a little bit earlier mapped out than some of the sports we cover more in depth, like football and basketball, where everything comes down to the wire. I think there's some of that in baseball, but kids get a little more attracted to the team they're going to go to earlier on and kind of set their course. So this will be huge because I know that if we talk about Brad Underwood and the grind that they have as a recruiting, coaches in these non-rev sports are doing the same thing. They're just driving themselves all over the country to go look at kids. And that's what they're going to be doing all summer. And that's what they're doing right now, going to see travel tournaments and what have you to go find the next crop of kids.
Yeah. The other thing I think for Dan Hartle, which is a selling point, is like, you got that new indoor facility, which I know was a priority. I know they want to renovate Illinois Field. Like, they need an upgrade for Illinois Field. So if you stack some winning seasons together here, Scott, and get some interest and get some donor interest and help Josh Whitman kind of make that a reality, I think that's got to be a priority for Illinois to upgrade that facility.
Well, with the facility we've had, let's see, with a little bit of nice weather, it was close to 2,000 fans every day over this past weekend, without even really trying. I mean, let's be honest, there's no chairbacks, but we all know that baseball just draws people, even when it's just the chance to be outside and enjoy a warm weather sport and watch the guys hit. So, yeah. I mean, Dan has shared publicly there has been a substantial gift, unknown amount, made towards something with the facility. And when that will all come to fruition, if that's seed money, if they need more or what, I don't know. But I think all you got to do is add a little bit here, a little bit there, and people would really come to it. And you don't want to be left behind facilities wise, because there's 4 more schools coming in. I actually don't know how attractive the actual facilities are at like USC and UCLA, but they are nice at Oregon and Washington. Mm-hmm. So it's just another piece to it, that those teams are coming, and it's another peer you have to compete with now.
Well, Scott Beatty, this was fantastic. Thank you for the insight on this Illini baseball team. People tune in the Illini Radio Network. You can hear Scott Beatty on the call as they have 2 big series coming up this weekend. Scott, anything else you want to add?
Well, I just wondered when we were getting to the White Sox.
Let's stay away from that topic, shall we?
Stand up.
That's right. Illini baseball giving us some decent baseball in this day. I know the Cubs are too, but for all the Cardinals and White Sox fans, they give you a nice distraction here, Scott.
Hey, thanks a lot. This is fun. I'm happy to do this anytime, man.
Appreciate you, Scott.